So what is this idea of bonding, not branding? Well, at the primary core, it's really doing three things. It's developing functional, emotional, and symbolic value. So the product works really well, the product makes me feel really good, and the product shows other people, whether virtually or in real life, that I'm kind of not a fool and I'm buying the right kind of thing. So functional, emotional, symbolic value. The second sort of thing that underlies bonding, which is really key, is this notion of being authentic and transparent. So some of us in the room are old enough to remember 1993, the New Yorker cartoon, one of my favorite cartoons of all time. There's a little dog, let's call him Fido, and he's on his computer, right? He's on his computer, right, Patrick? And he's looking down, he's talking to his other little dog, Bobby friend, right? He says, hey, Bobby, he said, I don't know, he's maybe ordering steaks from steak.com or whatever, and he says, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, okay? And the sort of interesting notion was this idea of anonymity. And in some places it really works. If you look at Florian Zettelmeyer, a friend of mine at Northwestern, did a really cool study where he showed the anonymity in lead gen for automotive dealers actually took away biases to do with gender and other things in the loan process. So if Charlie Kim is looking for a car and comes in as a lead gen, I actually don't know the person's gender, and so the typical bias goes away. But I would argue in 2018, the internet is now more about being authentic and transparent. So I don't know if Craig is actually here, but if you look at Care Of is a fantastic brand that really nails this to a T. If you go there and you order your supplements and vitamins, what they're doing now is they're also showing you research about all the new stuff that's coming out. They'll say, you know, calcium's really good for you for these reasons. Milkweed, question mark, the research is mixed. So how do we be authentic and transparent? And then number three, Emily Weiss would be a great poster person for this, is how do we develop compelling content in an engaged community? And what we see more and more in the consumer and retail landscape is companies might even start with this before they introduce the product, okay? So those are the three core principles of developing a relationship or a bond as a result of shared experiences: functional, emotional, symbolic value, authenticity and transparency, and now compelling content with an engaged community. Okay, number two, we could probably play a little game if we had a chart of Hangman. So this is going to start with O. So a public speaker, especially one of great eloquence. Okay, this would be an orator. Okay, thank you, an orator. So I would argue, or we would argue at Idea Farm, that in the digital economy, in the age of new retail and new consumer models, we want orators, not customers. The notion of a customer at some level is sort of very transactional, right? I take Stefan, I take his money, and I give him something. He's my customer. But in the digital economy, you want orators. You want people who are going to tell your story. Because in the digital economy, your audience has an audience. So if this were a store that Randall and I were running and a few hundred people came in here and they kind of experienced what was going on in our store, by the end of the day, how many people had insight into what happened in our store? Well, the 200 people that showed up, and maybe another 20, because 10% of the people told a family member or a friend or a spouse, let's say. So 200 footprint gives you 220. In the digital economy, a 200 footprint might give you 20,000, because Stefan has, 10,000 people following him on Instagram, and he talks about what we're doing. So in the digital economy, your audience has an audience, and you can never get away from that. So orators, not customers, again, has sort of three really important pieces. Number one, you have to have a shareable story and a reason to tell it. So what's the shareable story of a brand like Snow or a brand like Burrow or a brand like Away? If you look at those brands, they all have a great story to tell you about your home, about what you do in your home, about your travel and your lifestyle and so on. Number two, you need to identify the people who are going to tell this story. Now, it's great if you can get Ryan Gosling, okay, to sort of wear your glasses. I don't know if you guys had this experience. Like once in a while, even though I'm a Kiwi, I try to defy my roots of being a very basic dude, and I watched some sort of highbrow movie. So I went and watched this movie called Her, okay? Because this was the movie where there was the greatest disparity between what regular people thought of it, they hated it, and like what the critics thought, they loved it. So I thought, I got to go see that, because this is going to be very highbrow. I actually dozed off to sleep, but I remember that guy, that Joaquin Phoenix, was wearing this pair of glasses. I couldn't get out of my head, what the heck were they? And I came back to class the next week, and a lady in my class said, yeah, they were Warby Parkers. She was working on some campaign, and in Her, Joaquin Phoenix is wearing these glasses. So sometimes they may be people of this nature who are already famous, who have followers, but of course, In the digital economy, these people are absolutely critical too. This is Tyler Oakley. He has about 4 million people following him on YouTube. When he opens up that box and he talks to his audience, people really, really take notice, okay? Those of you who work in the sector will know the micro-influencer is incredibly important. There's an academic paper called the Million Follower Fallacy that says, you know what you really want, not necessarily people who've got 5 million followers, but people who have 50,000 who are so authentic and so deep in their content that whatever they say to their community just resonates and the community acts on it.